Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. We're going to be looking at the second half of our story in John chapter 11. We're going to see Lazarus raised from the dead. Remember, last week what we saw was Jesus was in a town about a day's way away from about a day's journey away from a town called Bethany, where his friends Martha, Mary, and their brother Lazarus lived. And remember, I told you they were very good friends. They were very close friends. So Martha sent a messenger out to Jesus, knowing that he was about a day away, and said, "Tell them that the one that you love, Lazarus, is sick." And the connotation is there is that I'm sorry. The implication is there that Lazarus was very sick. But Jesus waited around for a couple of days. He wanted to make sure that one, Lazarus was dead, and he knew he was going to be dead. He wanted him to be dead for a length of time so that everybody would know that he was dead. And that also, but that by the time he got there, he would be able to show them that he has the power over death and that he can raise somebody from the dead, which he's going to do. So now we're going to pick it up in verses 28 to 40, to verses 28 to 40, and then I'm going to finish the rest of the story after that. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher is here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And Mary was also as disappointed as Martha was. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had also come along with her weeping, he was deeply moved and troubled in spirit. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could he not, who have opened somebody else's eyes, prevented this man from dying?" What we have here is we have Jesus getting there, meeting with Mary and Martha, seeing how upset they were. And it says here in the passage that Jesus was troubled in his spirit. The original language teaches us that Jesus was angry. Jesus was looking at death. Jesus was seeing what death does to people, how it upsets him, and he was angry at that. And he knew he could do something about it. And at that moment, he was saying, "You know what? I'm sick of this. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to do something about it right now because I can." And he's going to show his authority in a few minutes. It also tells us that Jesus wept. Jesus cried. That shows us that Jesus knows our sadnesses, that he sees what we're going through, he knows what we're going through, and he hurts along with us. He wants you to come to him with your troubles. He will be there alongside you, just as he was alongside the sisters mourning their brother. Now, continuing on with verses 38 to 44. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there many days." Jesus is going to remind her again. "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Jesus knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. He prayed out loud to the Father so that the people would understand that if you pray to the Father, he will hear you. Jesus knew the Father heard him. We must know that the Father hears us. So then Jesus called into the tomb. He called Lazarus out. The old language tells us what he said to Lazarus was, "Lazarus, come this way. This is the way out." We also believe that he specifically called on Lazarus because had said something like, come out of there, then all of the dead people would have come out. But Jesus wasn't there for all of the dead people. He was there specifically for Lazarus. We have to think back to John chapter 5, where Jesus said, there's coming a day when all of the dead in the graves will hear my voice and they will come out. And that was a reference here. Jesus called, just if he just would randomly called, then they probably all would have come out, because that's the power that Jesus has over death. Jesus has that power. He has that authority to handle any problem, any situation you have, as long as you bring it to him. He wants you to bring it to him so that he can show you God's glory. Now, I'm going to finish up the rest of the chapter. Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. What are we accomplishing? They asked. Here is the man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation. Then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, spoke up. You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than the whole nation perish. He did not say this on his own, but as high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation, and not only for the nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. So from that day on, they plotted to take his life. Therefore, Jesus no longer moved about publicly among the people of Judea. Instead, he withdrew to a region near the wilderness, to a village called Ephraim, where he stayed with his disciples. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, many went up from the country to Jerusalem to the ceremonial cleansing before the Passover. They kept looking for Jesus, and as they stood in the temple courts, they asked one another, "What do you think? Isn't he coming to the festival at all?" But the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that anyone who found out where Jesus was should report it so that they might arrest him. Now, what we're doing is we're winding into the time. We still have 11 chapters to go, but we're winding into the time where Jesus is getting close to his crucifixion. The references is the Passover. So now what you had here is that Jesus has been performing miracles. He's been healing blind men. He's been healing paralyzed men. He's been healing women from demons. He's been healing women from sicknesses. He's raising a man from the dead. Some are believing him, some are not. Just like today, we hear the stories of Jesus. We know who he is. Some of us choose to believe him. Some of us choose not to. I think it's crazy not to believe him because of all the miracles he's performing. And he's going to perform one more miracle later on in the book. And that is going to be, I'm going to spoiler alert, that's going to be the resurrection. But this story here, in particular, along with everything else that John has written so far, is here for you so that you can believe in Jesus as the Messiah. And if you already believe him, these stories will strengthen your relationship with him, because you know he has the authority to overcome any problem or any sadness that you have. He just wants you to go to him. Have yourself a great week.